Divorce does not just end a marriage. It ends a financial life you spent years building and starts a new one from a position most people are completely unprepared for. The average person going through a divorce at 35 will lose up to 77% of their personal wealth. That number is not a worst-case scenario. It is the median. I'm Max of Monkey Money, and today we're talking about the financial mechanics of divorce for average earners, the $10,000 reality that nobody walks you through when the papers are signed. Not the high net worth playbook, not celebrity divorce strategy. The practical, tactical financial reset that people in their 30s and 40s actually need when a shared financial life splits in two. Let us start with the number in the title because the reality is more complicated than a single figure. An uncontested divorce, where both parties agree on everything, can technically be completed for $1,000 to $3,000. The moment you introduce negotiation, children, real estate, or retirement accounts, the cost escalates rapidly. Average attorney fees for a contested divorce run approximately $11,300 per side. Add mediators, real estate appraisers, financial analysts, and the administrative cost of separating a joint financial life, and $10,000 is frequently the floor, not the ceiling. For divorces with meaningful assets or genuine disputes, $30,000 to $60,000 in combined legal costs is not unusual. But the attorney fees are almost the least important part of the financial picture. The larger damage is structural, the immediate loss of dual income economies of scale. Two people sharing one mortgage, one set of utilities, one car insurance policy, one grocery budget. That efficiency disappears overnight, and both individuals now have to fund a full household on a single income. This is the part that breaks the math for most people in their 30s. Your income didn't change, your fixed costs just roughly doubled. The $10,000 divorce is not the number on the legal bill. It is the number that represents the beginning of a permanent restructuring of every financial assumption you had built your life around. So what actually gets divided, and how does the law determine who gets what? The answer depends significantly on where you live, and understanding this up front is one of the most financially important things a divorcing person can know. The United States operates under two different legal frameworks for marital property division. 9 states, Arizona, California, Idaho, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Washington, and Wisconsin, are community property states. In these states, any asset acquired during the marriage is presumed to be equally owned by both spouses and divided 50-50. It does not matter whose name is on the account, whose paycheck funded it, or who managed it. If it was acquired during the marriage, it is split. The remaining 41 states use equitable distribution, which sounds fairer, but is often more unpredictable. Equitable distribution means the court divides assets in a way it considers fair, which may or may not be 50-50, depending on factors like the length of the marriage, each spouse's earning capacity, and contributions to the household. For average earners without the resources to litigate extensively, equitable distribution can feel arbitrary and is heavily influenced by the quality of legal representation each side can afford. For most people in their 30s and 40s, the primary assets being divided fall into 3 categories: the family home, retirement accounts, primarily 401ks and IRAs, and vehicles. Each one comes with its own set of financial traps that can cost you significantly if you do not understand the mechanics before you negotiate. The family home is usually the largest single asset and the most emotionally loaded decision in any divorce. The temptation to fight to keep the house is understandable. It represents stability, continuity for children, and a sense that the marriage did not take everything. But for most single-income earners in their mid-30s, keeping the family home is one of the most financially destructive decisions they can make. A mortgage that was manageable on 2 incomes often becomes unmanageable on 1. Property taxes, maintenance, insurance, and the general cost of running a home do not decrease. because your household income did. Before deciding to fight for the house, run the actual numbers. Can you genuinely afford this mortgage, these taxes, and these maintenance costs on your single income, while also rebuilding an emergency fund and contributing to retirement? For many people, the honest answer is no, and the financially smarter move, even though it feels like losing, is to sell the home, split the equity, and use your share as the foundation for a financial restart. A clean $50,000 in a high-yield savings account is worth more to a 35-year-old starting over than a house that is consuming every dollar of their take-home pay. I want to pause here and acknowledge something. This is genuinely hard content to sit with. Divorce is not an abstract financial event. It is a life event with real weight. It is a bit like being handed a perfectly good bunch of bananas and then being told you have to give half of them back, split the cost of the original bag, and also now buy your own separate shelf to put them on, all while trying to figure out which bananas you actually owned before you got married. Retirement accounts are the second major asset category, and they come with a legal mechanism that most people going through divorce have never heard of until they need it. It is called a Qualified Domestic Relations Order, or QDRO, pronounced QDRO. A QDRO is a court order that allows retirement assets to be transferred from one spouse's account to the other's without triggering the early withdrawal penalty or income taxes that would normally apply. Without a QDRO, withdrawing money from a 401k before age 59 and a half costs you a 10% penalty plus ordinary income tax on the full amount. On a $50,000 401k split, that could mean losing $15,000 to $20,000 in taxes and penalties that a properly executed QDRO would have preserved entirely. If retirement accounts are part of your divorce settlement, insisting on a QDRO is not optional, it is mandatory. The strategic question around retirement accounts is whether you want them or whether you want to trade them for something else. The general principle for average earners is to prioritize assets that generate future wealth over assets that generate future costs. Taking a larger share of the 401k instead of fighting for the house is often the mathematically superior choice, even when it does not feel that way emotionally. Pre-marital assets, money or property you owned before the marriage, or inheritances received during it, are generally not subject to division in most states. Keeping clear documentation of what you brought into the marriage is important because commingling those assets with marital funds can make them subject to division even if they were originally separate. If you received an inheritance during the marriage and deposited it into a joint account, you may have inadvertently made it a marital asset, which is a costly mistake to discover during negotiations. If you're still with us, hit that like button and subscribe to Monkey Money. It genuinely helps us keep making content like this. Now, let us talk about what you actually do with the financial picture once the paperwork is signed. The first 30 to 60 days after a divorce is finalized are the most financially vulnerable period of the entire process. Most people are emotionally exhausted, legally drained, and operating without a clear plan for what comes next. This is exactly when the decisions that will define the next decade of your financial life get made, and made badly, if there is no framework in place. The immediate priority is financial triage, stopping the bleeding before you start rebuilding. Step 1 is separating all joint credit and stopping joint spending completely. Any joint credit card that remains open is a liability you share regardless of what the divorce decree says. Creditors are not bound by your settlement agreement, and a missed payment by your ex will damage your credit, whether the court assigned that debt to them or not. Step 2 is establishing your own individual high-yield savings account immediately, not a checking account at the bank you shared with your spouse. A new, separate, individual account at a different institution, one that has no connection to your previous financial life and earns a meaningful interest rate on whatever cash you are able to preserve. Step 3. Update every beneficiary designation you have. Your 401k, your IRA, your life insurance policy, your will. All of them likely still list your ex-spouse as the primary beneficiary. A divorce decree does not automatically change these designations. If you die without updating them, your assets can legally pass to your ex regardless of the divorce settlement. The cost of inaction here is significant. Every month you delay separating joint accounts, updating beneficiaries, or opening your own savings account is a month of financial exposure you do not need. Triage is not about moving fast emotionally. It is about moving fast on the 3 or 4 decisions that protect everything else. Once triage is complete, the financial rebuild starts with one non-negotiable priority: the emergency fund. Before aggressive investing, before paying down debt faster than required, before anything else, you need 3 to 6 months of expenses in a liquid, accessible account. The reason this comes first is that without it, any financial setback, a job loss, a medical bill, a car repair, forces you back into debt at the exact moment when you are trying to rebuild. Even on a tight post-divorce budget, you should be contributing enough to your employer's 401k to capture the full employer match. A full employer match is a 100% immediate return on that contribution. There is no debt paydown strategy, no investment approach, no financial move available to you that produces a guaranteed 100% return. Getting the full match is the single highest return financial action available. Beyond the emergency fund and the employer match, the question of what to prioritize, debt paydown versus investing, depends on the interest rates involved. High-interest debt above 7% should generally be eliminated before investing aggressively, for the same reason we have covered in other videos. You cannot reliably out-earn 18% credit card interest in the stock market. Below 7%, the math typically favors investing, because long-term market returns historically exceed that threshold. One of the most financially important decisions you can make before the divorce process begins is choosing mediation over litigation wherever possible. Contested court battles for average asset divorces are financially irrational. Spending $30,000 to $60,000 in combined legal fees to divide assets worth $80,000 means both parties lose the majority of what they are fighting over to attorneys. Mediation keeps the process structured and legally binding while dramatically reducing cost. A mediated divorce with moderate complexity, including property and retirement account division, can often be completed for under $10,000 total. The savings between a mediated settlement and a litigated one can represent the entire emergency fund you need to restart your financial life. The goal in divorce negotiations for average earners is not to win. It is to exit the process with enough financial resources to actually rebuild. Every dollar spent fighting in court is a dollar that cannot go toward an emergency fund, a retirement account, or the deposit on the apartment you need to start the next chapter. Here's a useful way to think about the mediation versus litigation decision. Imagine 2 monkeys arguing over a pile of bananas, each hiring a third monkey to argue on their behalf. By the time the arguing is done, the lawyer monkeys have eaten most of the pile, and the 2 original monkeys are left splitting what remains, which is almost always less than they would have gotten if they had simply divided it themselves at the start. For people restarting at 35, the psychological challenge of the financial reset is often as significant as the practical one. The comparison to where you thought you would be at this age, the home equity, the retirement savings, the net worth, can make the rebuild feel futile before it starts. It is not futile, but it requires a different frame. 35 with a financial reset is not the same as 22 with nothing. You have something a 22-year-old building from scratch does not have: income history, career trajectory, and the hard-won clarity that comes from having made real financial decisions over time. You also have 30 years of potential compounding ahead of you, which is enough time for consistent investing to produce outcomes that most people would consider genuinely life-changing. The benchmark that matters is not where you would have been without the divorce. It is where you will be in 10 years if you execute the reset correctly. 5 years of disciplined saving and investing from a post-divorce baseline at a savings rate of 20 to 25% can rebuild a net worth that matches or exceeds what the pre-divorce household had, because now it is entirely yours. The people who navigate this transition successfully are not the ones who avoided the financial damage. They are the ones who stopped measuring themselves against the life that did not happen and started building the one that is actually in front of them. That shift from comparison to construction is the only financial mindset that actually moves the number. Divorce is one of the most financially disruptive events that can happen in a person's life. The 77% wealth reduction figure is real, it is documented, and for most average earners, it represents years of accumulated progress disrupted by a legal process that takes months. But it is not permanent, and it is not the end of the story. The reset is hard, the rebuild is slow, but the financial tools available to a 35-year-old starting over are the same ones available to everyone else. Time, compound interest, a savings rate that outpaces your fixed costs, and the discipline to let those things work. None of that requires starting in a good position. It just requires starting. Drop a comment and let me know. What is the financial question nobody is asking about divorce that you want us to cover? If this video helped you think more clearly about the financial side of this difficult situation, then hit subscribe. Every week, we bring you the real math behind the decisions that actually shape your financial life. See you in the next video.